So say you're me, and it's the night before your AP Language and Comp exam. You've done your studying, but for the life of you cannot remember what each of the American Lit periods are. Well, I don't know about the others, but here's a refresher course on one of them. So here we've got Transcendentalism. The period started in 1836 and ended just about 1861. The deal is, at the time, some people were really upset with the way the Unitarian Church was running things, so instead, a group of people turned to nature, which is why we have a tree, a check mark, and a rather large smiley face. Basically, what they believed was that any individual was greater and more powerful than an institution, and that inside of every person's head was God's secret voice, so there was no reason for a church. Naturally, this group of people got together and started a club, and like any other club, they had rules. First of all, they believed that basic truths could be found through your intuition, which means you don't learn how to know things, you just know already. They also believed that an inner soul will lead to the truth. They believed that individual relationships with God were much better than anything you could get through an institution like a church, and they also believed that nature was basically self-knowledge. The oversoul was what they called the combination of every god from every religion, and it's what they believed in. They also said that all nature is significant, and they promoted individualism. They also found the goodness of nature everywhere. So basically, what every transcendentalist believed was that your mind is all a person needs to figure out the great mysteries of life. You don't need somebody teaching you something, and you don't have to learn something to figure it out. You're basically born with the knowledge. So you don't need logic either. They also believed that at birth there wasn't the whole tabula rasa idea, but that instead of being nothing, the mind itself was the mind, which basically flew in the face of everything everyone was saying these days, including the great philosopher John Locke. But it kind of does make sense in a weird way, doesn't it? So now we have the people who started this transcendental club, which we'll call our main transcendentalists. First off, we have Ralph Waldo Emerson, who basically got the whole movement started. Yes, that's right, we did find Waldo. Emerson wrote primarily journals and lectures, which he gave on a regular basis. His most famous work is Nature, which he published in 1836. He also helped found the Transcendentalist magazine, which was called The Deal, and then died in 1882 of pneumonia. Emerson's style is very distinct. His sentences are clear, but when put into paragraphs, they can be somewhat confusing. He mostly wrote about his observations, which is what a journal is. He was also quietly optimistic usually, and mostly wrote poetry with just a little bit of prose mixed in. Next, we have Henry David Thoreau, the other very well-known author of the Transcendentalist period. He mostly wrote about natural history and philosophy and composed a set of essays which went into Walden, which was published in 1854. Walden was about his times living alone in a shack next to Walden Pond. There's Thoreau, and there's his awesome hair. Now I know you're tired of hearing boring old facts by now, so it's story time. Basically, how it goes is around the time the Civil War was starting, Thoreau was very, very upset about this. So upset, in fact, that he refused to pay his taxes. And when you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail. So when he was sitting in jail, he got to thinking about what he was doing and coined the phrase nonviolent civil disobedience. Think back all the way to your history class and remember what that means. Sound familiar? Remember the campaigns for African American rights in the 60s in America? Remember the names? Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. What about over in India, how Mohandas K. Gandhi was fighting for independence without actually fighting? See? Influence. Lastly, we have Margaret Fuller, who was our lone female in the Transcendental Club. She was, of course, a feminist, and the editor of The Dial, which was the Transcendentalist magazine. Her work, Woman in the 19th Century, was considered the first major feminist work, at least in America. She later died in a shipwreck in 1850. Her body has never been found. Margaret Fuller's style is overly complicated, and being an AP language, we have a word for that. It was pedantic, to say the least. Sorry for almost misspelling that. She was usually critiqued more on her conversation and personality, which were both willful, strong, forceful, and generally well received. In summary, the goal of every transcendentalist was to relate all individuals to both the natural world and the world they had inside themselves, their inner world. In order to illustrate this, we'll have a leaf, and then a head, a body, some continents, some water. Boom, inner world. And now some nature. Fish, 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 tree, 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 bird, 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 rolling, 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 nom, 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 just kidding.
Thank you for